watching America's Entrepreneur. Welcome to the show. I'm your host, Aaron Spatz, and each week we interview entrepreneurs, industry experts, and other high achievers as they detail their personal and professional journeys. Before we jump in, hit the subscribe button and be sure to hit the bell icon so you're notified every time we release a new episode. Hey, welcome to America's Entrepreneur. So excited that you're joining for yet again another exciting week, another exciting episode, and just so delighted that you're here. So thank you for making some time and for engaging. So if you really enjoy these conversations, whether it's in video form or in audio form, tell your friends. I think it's a great opportunity, like I've said in the past, to use it as a conversation opener with other people, and I've used it, and it's been a great way to build a bridge with somebody. And so really excited to welcome today's guest, Dave Morgasen. Dave, you'll quickly recognize him if you've been around the internet for more than a few minutes and for more than a few years. And so let me read you just real briefly. I'll skim his bio, but Dave graduated from California State University, Fullerton's screenwriting MFA program in 2017. He's presently an adjunct professor at his alma mater, teaching classes in screenwriting and producing for TV and film. He continues to work as a writer, producer, director for television, film, and digital video. His writing credits include the hit Disney film Princess Protection Program. He has worked on many shows and has served as co-creator, writer, and executive producer, along with Howard Stern, for all 3 seasons of FX Network's Son of the Beach. He was a writer, co-executive producer on E's Nightstand with Dietrick. Currently, he is in post-production on a pilot for Red, White, and Lou, an animated half-hour comedy he co-created for 20th Century Disney about a newly immigrated family, starring comedian Maz Jobrani, along with an ethnically diverse cast. He serves as executive producer along his partners, including Maz and Courteney Cox. As a director, his work could be seen on shows including The Ellen DeGeneres Show and ABC's Jimmy Kimmel Live. Morgasen was a pioneer in viral videos and online branded content. During his tenure as executive producer at HBO Digital, he produced and directed installments of the early YouTube sensation David Blaine's Street Magic, which has garnered hundreds of millions of views, as well as McCain-Obama Dance Off, which garnered tens of millions of views, and extensive coverage on news outlets across the country. In the digital space, he's also created several web series for Disney XD, Yahoo, and other online destinations. His work has been featured in the Outfest Film Festival and the LA Comedy Shorts Film Festival. And so with that, Dave, that's a lengthy bio, but man, what an amazing career and what an amazing journey that you've had. And I'm so honored that you joined me on the show today. Thank you.
Thank you, Aaron. Thanks for inviting me.
Absolutely. We got connected, and I'd seen an old memory that you'd shared about David Blaine's Street Magic from 15 years ago. I cannot believe it's been 15 years.
Hey, what are you drinking?
I'm drinking orange soda. Ooh, big whoop.
His favorite.
You gonna turn it into a teddy bear? I'm holding it.
Orange soda, huh? Hey, what else is orange?
What else is orange? I don't know. Cheez-Its? Cheez-Its!
What the?
Cheez-Its! Fuck! What? Cheez-Its! 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 Where's my orange soda? What'd you do with it? Where's my orange soda?
It's orange soda in my mouth.
What the F?
You put it in my mouth.
What the F?
How did you get it in my mouth?
Please stop, you demon! You're a demon!
What the hell?
What does that mean to you 15 years later and people are still talking about it?
It's crazy. It's first of all, yeah, I cannot believe that much time has gone by. I just, in my back of my mind, it's like, oh yeah, that's 5 years ago.
Right.
Everything's 5 years ago, but it's like, wow, 15 years ago. It's pretty crazy. And the other crazy thing is that, like, once I realized, hey, this is an anniversary, I'm just going to put it on LinkedIn, which I never have. I post to LinkedIn, but I've never posted my videos directly to LinkedIn. It's like, on this occasion, why not? So I posted it to LinkedIn, and I am absolutely shocked that it's actually going viral again, but this time, like, in the business community.
Right.
It's not YouTube this time. It's LinkedIn. It's like I have got LinkedIn viral, which is crazy, and it's picking up thousands of views on LinkedIn, and it's almost like living another life now. And most of the people who've commented have seen it. It's like, oh my God, either I grew up with this, or I can't believe it's been 15 years. I love this. Some people have never seen it before, and it's like, wow, how do they do that? That type of thing. So yeah, it's having another life, and it's very gratifying. But yeah, 15 years ago, it is crazy, to think that.
Well, and certainly, obviously, as I read your bio, that's obviously not the only noteworthy thing you've done in your career. It's something that we like to grab hold to, because a lot of people just in just general conversation definitely recognize it, right? It's something that people can immediately relate to. But you've had a very successful, very lengthy career in the entertainment industry. That is no easy feat. That does not happen by accident. And so, our audience is mostly business professionals. There's a lot of military veterans that also watch the show. But so I think, kind of, without going too in the weeds of the entertainment industry, but I would love, though, to understand like how'd you break into the industry? It is a notoriously difficult place to make a living and to do work and to continue on for as long as you've had. So, how do you feel like that journey was for you?
Well, it first started when I started in the business community. So, my first career was in radio. Like, when I was an undergrad at Ohio University, which is in Athens, Ohio. And from New York, but I went to school in Ohio. And all I wanted to do at that point was I wanted to be produce radio stuff and commercials, theater of the mind. You could sit there and you could sound like 1,000 people there, and any sound effect, and just like you're one guy, And I was also on the air, and that was my first career. And so I was happy doing that. And then it's like, what? I'd love to see what the whole visual elements about in print. And so I went to work on Madison Avenue. So I actually was taking the train. I was taking the train to Madison Avenue and working in ad agencies. And I was going every day, 9 to 5. And on my way home on the train every day, I'd get a copy of not every day, but every week, I get Weekly Variety, which is one of the trade publications for the entertainment industry. And I look at all these movies they're making and all this stuff, and it's like, wow, how do I get there? And this is before YouTube, right? Before internet, so it's like, I had no idea how to get there. So I did work at an ad agency, and I realized I'm not a 9 to 5 guy. I'm just not. I can't do it. But what happened was that I decided to leave, and some of the clients for the ad agency said, take us with you.
Wow.
So I opened my own little ad agency in Queens, New York. And, it's just me and my cat, basically, in an office in Queens. And so I did work in business for a long time. Part of that was that because my dad was always a businessman. He was in retailing, and he was an executive. And he did not want me to go into show business. So, but I couldn't help it. Like, when I was 12 years old, I typed a letter to MGM.
Wow.
And I asked them if they needed any help. There I was on Long Island in New York. I said, hey, do you need any help? And they're like, son, you're 12. Maybe you should wait. Contact us when you're out of school. Like, what would I have done anyway if they said, yeah, hey, Dad, didn't make any sense, So finally, I broke free. I said, Dad, this isn't for me. I started writing screenplays with my partner, and eventually, what I started doing is working with a comedy troupe called the Groundlings. Okay, they were in New York and they were in LA. That's where, if you watch SNL, like Will Ferrell, he was in the Groundlings. Kristen Wiig, all these people came from the Groundlings. And so I worked with them, and what we started doing is doing corporate gigs. So I would book the Groundlings into Fortune 500 meetings. We would do sales meetings. So it'd be like SNL meets corporate America.
Oh my gosh.
So what we would, I know, you think like the term corporate comedy is a bit of an oxymoron, but we would show up at sales meetings, and I would learn everything about the company, everything about the client, it would be strictly scripted, and this troupe of really funny actors would satirize the actual executive. So it's like SNL meets corporate America, and we were a huge hit. I gotta tell you, Aaron, I did very well. I had a company. I formed a company called Punchline Productions, and we went everywhere. They flew us to Bermuda, to Mexico, to Puerto Rico, and we did sales meetings. We did lots of them, and training films, corporate comedy training films.
Oh my gosh! Now, yeah, there's a huge market for that in terms of corporate training, because that's a notoriously dry topic.
Yes, and I'm about to actually get involved again, and I'm going to be re-entering that and announcing in a couple of months. We'll be doing it again in a different way, but what that did was like a bridge. It was like a bridge between corporate America and my corporate obligations and my job and show business. And then I met all these people through doing that, and they said, "Hey, move to LA and we'll help you get an agent." And sure enough, I made the transition. So that's how I started out. And I did make it to LA, that place I was reading about on the subway, in Variety.
Wow.
But it's a tremendous amount of work, and there are days where I regret it. There are days where it's like, I should have stayed. I like the East Coast, and it's very normal. But yeah, I don't. And I look at my bio now, and it's like, how did I even do? I don't even know how I did it.
Yeah,
there's a lot of stuff on it. Yeah.
I mean, that's a fascinating thought, and I know you didn't mean much by that, but it's a fascinating thought though to think when you read your bio, right? It's not like you sat there and you planned every element of that bio. It's like that's the accumulation of years and years of hard work and dedication and focus, and you've been able to do it. And I think that's another thing that I think a lot of folks misunderstand about the entertainment industry, because I've had several folks from the entertainment industry on this program, but it is a lot of diligence, persistence. I mean, you're putting the years in prior to making that move and going even deeper into the industry. I mean, you were doing so much leading up to that point, and so that's something I think should be an encouragement to a lot of people, right? But it's what I'm hearing you say is a lot of patience, a lot of patience and persistence involved in that.
Well, it's a lot of work, and I do teach a college now, in addition to the other things that I do, and so part of my job is to prepare these young folks for the industry, and I try to be real about it. But my big theme to them on the first day is just say yes, is because all of these things that you're talking about, Aaron, all these things that are on the bio and on the resume, most of the good stuff and the fun stuff that's happened to me ever since I went into business, I could not have seen coming, and I was not prepared to do. But somebody said, "Hey, we got this. Can you do that? Can you direct that?" And I'm like, "Yeah, sure." So it's like, say yes, figure it out later. And I've managed to do that. That's what I've done. I didn't plan. All I planned to do was come out here and to start writing, and all the other things just came up. It was really an interesting process.
Yeah, I think interesting is probably an understatement.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you've seen your work go viral. I mean, you've worked with some incredibly noteworthy people. Again, as I shared on the bio. I mean, what was that like? I mean, I imagine it started, again, you mentioned Howard Stern, but you also had done work when you're doing like all these different corporate trainings, these corporate sales calls. I mean, at some point, you're probably starting to rub shoulders with people that you're like, "Oh my gosh, like I've read about you before, like I've heard your name." Like what was that like when you started to recognize that your work was now starting to land in the crosshairs of people that you've read about?
Yeah, it was a bit surreal, a lot of the people that I'd hired as actors for these Groundlings corporate functions, I had seen them all before. They weren't necessarily household names, but it's like, I've seen this guy on Golden Girls or something, or some Seinfeld or some sitcom, and it's like, and knowing them really kind of paid off. And my first writing job in Los Angeles was a thing called the American Comedy Awards. And that used to be on ABC years ago when TV specials were still a big thing. They're not anymore, but the network TV special, American Comedy Awards, you know what? I don't even know how I got that. There was a producer named George Schlatter who used to do Laughing. He's Real People, a million things. He's an institution. My agent got a meeting for me with him. And it was really to write for all of these people in 1 2-hour show. So in the first 2-hour show that I did, I wrote stuff for Eddie Murphy, Jerry Seinfeld, George Carlin, Richard Belzer, Mary Tyler Moore, Dick Van Dyke, and all of these people were out in the audience. And that, to me, sitting in a green room with all of these people, it was like, you know, it's like that old Talking Head song. Well, how did I get here?
Right.
You know, excuse me. When I started working with people, it was a little freaky, like at first, and then you realize it's like, oh, this person's just, he's a person, or she's a person. They're just human beings, right. And I find the universal thing, Aaron, is to treat people with respect. I think treating people with respect helps. Like, for instance, don't be presumptuous. Like I worked when I was on Kimmel. I did a small shoot with 50 Cent.
Oh, wow.
And I said, so, I'm giving him directions on the stage, right? I'm directing him. And I'm like, excuse me. And I kept saying, excuse me, can we do that again? Excuse me. Okay. Look, I'm assuming you don't go by 50, right? And people don't call you Mr. Cent. And he goes, can I say that? And he goes, yes, that's true. And he starts laughing. And I said, what do I call you? I don't want to say, hey, you. And he goes, hey, man, you call me Curtis. And I'm like, and he was so tickled that I stopped and just said, what should I call you? What do you like being called? Same thing. I was shooting with Eminem. And it's like, in that case, I was really intimidated. It was Eminem. It's like, oh my God, what is he going to do if he gets mad? I'm saying, excuse me, I'm assuming you don't go, like, I don't call you Eminem. What do you like to be called? He goes, oh, don't worry about it, man. Just call me Marshall. So Marshall it was. And so treating people with respect.
That's cool.
They liked it, and it made it a lot easier. I worked with some very difficult people, and I worked with some, but most of the people I work with, I'm happy to report, are they're pretty easygoing. They're like you and me. They just want to get the work done. They want to do a good job, and they want to go home.
Yeah. Wow. That's terrific. I mean, you've got a much greater depth and breadth of these interactions than I do. And I would just say, like, I've had a fraction of the interactions that you've had with folks like that. And I'd say the same thing. It's like everybody's got the same human needs, same basic things that are going on in their lives, that no matter how much people like to put them on pedestals, like they still have everyday lives. They still have struggles with relationships and kids and all sorts of different things that are going on. And so it's important to remember that. And I think it's cool because, like, you kind of had a really inside view on a lot of these people, because you got to see the human element of them, right? You weren't strictly the viewer of their performance, but you were directing, you were advising, you were doing a lot of things with them, and you were getting to see them as a person. And that's a view that not everybody gets to see, right? So pretty special.
Yeah, we're working on a pilot right now that you mentioned before called Red, White, and Blue, and that I'm producing with some partners, including Courteney Cox. And so we have meetings up at her house, which is up, it's basically right on the ocean in Malibu, beautiful place. But in working with her, it's like, she's like, just like anybody else, like her teenage daughter comes in, Mom, I'm going. She goes, hold on, not dressed like that. She's just like, it's like my wife talking to my daughter, it's just like, it's like the same thing. It's like all these people, they're just people. Even Howard Stern, working with him, the nicest guy. I know. People have plenty of opinions about Howard Stern, and I get that. But I'm just talking person to person. Could not be nicer. Like, I know that when we would walk down the hall, because we had a meeting at a hotel in Beverly Hills, and we were walking down a hallway afterward, and there was a guy that was there cleaning up, like he worked like for room service, but he'd like take the trays out after people were done eating. So he's like,
Okay.
And he sees us walking with Howard Stern, who's like, he's a ridiculously tall guy with long hair, you can't miss him, and he's walking with us, and the busboy goes, oh my God. Goes, Howard, please sign something. And he takes out a napkin or something, and Howard stops. He not only like goes, what's your name? Gets his name,
Cool.
And he writes his name, and he draws a little picture of himself on it. And
That's cool.
All the time. And it's like, you didn't have to do that. It's pretty coll. He's a nice guy. Yeah.
Yeah, that's fun. Yeah, I've without making this into the Howard Stern show, I'd seen I just remember he's got plenty of obviously noteworthy segments of his show, but I mean, I think one of the ones that stands out to me was the talking people off the bridge, literally, in that whole interaction, and this is a perfect segue. It's like I couldn't have actually drawn this better, but because you've had such a background in comedy, right? There's been a lot of what you do is comedy focused. And what I think made that interaction, and again, I'll have to remember to link this up. I'm sure it's on YouTube somewhere, because that was a long time. I think it was like in the 80s when he did that, or early 90s. And I think he did it multiple times, but there's one that I remember distinctly. And, it's this typical brash, kind of over the top self, but
Sure.
He's inserting a lot of humor into the situation to kind of de-escalate the tension that the other person felt. And so like that's one application of humor. And like, so for you, I guess I'd like to turn this conversation back to you, is like, why comedy? And like, what have you seen that like just draws you to comedy, and why do you think it's such a powerful tool rather than like all the other millions of different categories that are out there?
It's a very good question. It's the only genre that I have considered working in. I am working on stuff now that has some drama in it, but it's still comedic. It's dramatic comedy, and that's a very popular hybrid these days. You see a lot of streaming shows that they're either comedy with a touch of drama, or drama with a touch of comedy, or dramedy, as they say.
Yeah.
I just think, look, comedy is important. Let me just give you, going back to the corporate comedy thing, is that we've worked for companies as a troupe that, let's just say they didn't have a great year, and they're having their annual sales meeting, and there's like hundreds of people there in the audience, and they didn't have a great year. And what do? They send us out there. And what we do, believe it or not, is that companies have used us to basically transmit information. Basically to say, okay, we acknowledge we had a lousy year, but we do it with humor. That's the thing. We do it to the credit of these executives who hired us. We said, look, let us poke a little fun at you, because if you let us do that, you'll be heroes, because the people watching are going to realize, hey, these people have, they're human. They have a pretty good sense of humor about themselves, and they're going to listen. And comedy, just like, it kind of opens you up. It kind of softens you up to receive the message. And that's how I see it.
Oh.
And I just, I love all of the, all manner of comedy, going way back, old time comedians. I love, Richard Pryor, all the greats, but I just think, and comedy is so important, because that's what you want to see at the end of the day, working hard. Like, I noticed, like, on Netflix now, that every series you see is some kind of dark dystopian drama, where it's like so dark. I mean, you know, there are movies now they're making that people are complaining that they're literally dark, like they can't see them.
Oh my gosh.
The new Batman, my students told me they could barely see the movie, like they're in the theater. So the tone is not only dark, but it looks dark. Like that's the thing. And it's like, oh my God, how much of that can we have? So I think comedy, I think we need to kind of lighten things up.
Yeah.
And I think it's a great way to get your message across, I think, is with comedy, no matter what the message is, or no matter, you know, who your audience is. And I use it even in teaching. I use a lot of comedy, and my students appreciate it. My students laugh a lot, but they do learn. You know, they do learn. And I said I'm a really nice guy, but I will take you down a letter grade if you're late with that paper. Just want to let you know. So don't let this nice guy think fool you.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, that's really neat, because it's, I mean, I see comedy as just such, I mean, it's great medicine, right? It's like people going through difficult times. I mean, shoot, we need comedy right now, just with all the stuff that's going on in our world last several years, you know, and like you said, it's like, I mean, I can only imagine just how hilarious it would be to see, you know, a company that has had a horrible sales year, and then you guys going out there and, you know, either it's like poking fun at the sales team, or the you know, the different leadership involved, or clients, or whatever. I mean, there's a million and one different ways you could present that, but it's also like maybe there's even like a redeeming quality in that, right? Of like, hey, like, we love you guys, we got to do better, you know, but there's something in it of like, hey, like, we're in this together, we can make this happen, and comedy can kind of help be the vehicle that delivers that message, you know?
Yes, people they sort of get relaxed, and they're more open to a message. The only thing is that, you know, we can only do so much. So there was a time, I remember we did a meeting up in San Francisco, and we were right on the mark. We read on the money. People, they got the message, they laughed. And then I remember it was like a coffee break, and everybody was out by the coffee, and we actors were out there getting coffee too, the actors and myself. And people started asking us, so what's the game plan? Like, how are we going to resolve the problems? And it's like, we don't have that. Like, we don't even know. We have no clue. We're just hired to convey management's thinking to you. When you go back in the room, I'm assuming they're going to have some answers. Like, we can only do so. We're just a bunch of actors and comedians and comic writers, you know.
That's
so
funny.
We articulated the issues. It's going to be up to your bosses really to address them, you know, to answer the problems.
That's funny.
It's
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, Dave, there's 100 more topics we could, like I said off camera, we could probably spend another 2 or 3 hours going down any number of 100 different rabbit trails. That would be incredibly enjoyable. I would love to do that. I would like to just probably end on this, on a really basic question. Really, like, kind of the last thing that we could talk about here is just general advice for those, of those that are looking to break into this space. If they're looking at acting or writing, or they want to be behind the camera, or any number of functions across the industry, what's some advice that maybe you give your students that maybe you'd share with folks here that may be listening or watching?
You know, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. It's tough. There are much easier ways to make a living. And in my producing class, the first night when they come in, the first class, and I said, there's a lot of stuff about Hollywood you've seen on Entertainment Tonight. You see all the openings, all the premiere parties, all of the fun stuff that you see taking place in Hollywood. Well, my class is about none of those things. My class is about the work of producing, because it's a lot of work. So it's really about networking. If you want to the nice thing about show business now is that you can be anywhere, you know. I mean, when you're starting out, you should be in a place like LA, maybe New York. Now Atlanta has a lot of studios. huge amount of studios. It's become a huge production center, Atlanta. They have, in fact, Tyler Perry owns a studio that I think is larger in terms of square footage than any studio here in Hollywood.
Wow.
So there's a lot of opportunities, and opportunities doesn't mean you're writing or directing, although it includes that, but to be on a crew, to be involved with sound, to be involved with camera, you've just got to go for it. The great thing is, and I tell my students this, what I did not have available to myself while I was coming up was a spectacular technology. The technology that is enabling you and I to do this right now. I'm in Los Angeles, you're in Dallas, we're chatting. This is nothing. We take it for granted now. But think about it. What I tell the students is that, look, the David Blaine thing that you saw me do, that was not an expensive production, even though, believe it or not, HBO Digital was behind it. I was on their payroll at the time. But that was a very cheap shoot. What did it have in it? A brilliant idea, right?
Yeah.
A funny idea, funny writing, funny actors. It had stuff that you didn't need to go out and buy. You didn't need any fancy sets.
Yeah.
We didn't even get a permit. We shot in an alley in Burbank on a Sunday morning, and we ran for it afterward. We didn't get any permit. So, so in theory, I tell the students this: you can shoot what you want to shoot. You can edit it on your laptop. I mean, you could shoot it. You could shoot it on one of these. You could shoot it on your phone. You can edit it on a laptop. You can upload it to YouTube or any other or TikTok or wherever, and you can circumvent all the gatekeepers. I could never do that. You have to go out and rent equipment. You got to do all this other stuff. You have to sell it to a network. You can go around it. If you have a great idea and a talent, I don't care where you are, North Carolina, Nebraska, Texas, any place.
Right.
You can get your stuff out there, get it seen. There are people, executives here in Hollywood looking at TikTok, looking at YouTube, looking for the next. They're looking for talent.
Yeah.
And the fact that you can do that, there's nothing that really can hold you back. And there's plenty of, by the way, you don't have to go to college to learn this stuff. There's so much online, so many online free videos with great advice. You can learn to do this. You can do it. And you can do it. And by the way, I have a couple of National Guard troops in one of my class that they give me a note because sometimes they can't come to class because they have to go to the base and they have to put in their time but they want to be just as funny as the rest of us and they're just as talented so I couldn't be happier about that.
That's cool.
Yeah, so anybody who's out there and it's like, I can do that. You really can do that. They're shooting feature films with iPhones now.
That's crazy.
It's crazy. They make Steadicams for phones. I have one. I have a Steadicam.
Yeah, I seen like little gimbal rigs, right? Where for iPhones, and it's like you don't need these high-end production. I mean, I believe in them, but like the technology that's on board some of these iPhones is absolutely freaking nuts.
Especially the new ones. And I have the Steadicam. It's called a Smoothie, and it's handheld, so it's not like a rig like a regular one. And it balances. The iPhone balances in the middle, and you walk around with that, and you cannot tell.
That's so cool.
It seems like a real Steadicam. So I'm all in favor for do it yourself. Get it done. There's no reason why you can't really.
Yeah.
There's no reason why you can't.
Yeah, that's cool. That's cool. Well, Dave, time flies. This has been an absolutely just a real treat. I'm going to throw your Vimeo link up here. So for folks that are listening, go to vimeo.com/channels/Morgasen, or just Google Dave Morgasen. You're going to find a lot about this guy online. You can find all the things that you're working on. Red, White, and Blue. I can't wait to hear and see like when that's all wrapped up, I'd love to see what happens with that once it gets published.
If you go to YouTube and you put my last name in, I'll come up. Put Morgasen and Blaine in, because we have several installments of David Blaine. That was only one installment.
Right.
Yeah. The one thing that they all have in common is that there are no cuts in any of them.
Yeah.
That's the big thing.
Super impressive. Yeah. It's impressive when you look at it, you go back and you look and see like the sweater scene and like the orange soda and like all these different things. It's like, man, I can only imagine what they were doing, like trying to get this done really, really fast without making a lot of noise either. And so, I mean, really, really cool. Really, really cool. But Dave, thank you, sir. I really, really appreciate you making some time for me. Thanks for sharing a little bit about your journey and a little bit about your story. I really, really, really do appreciate that.
Well, it's my pleasure, Aaron. Thank you so much again for inviting me. It's great to be here.
Absolutely. Thanks for listening to America's Entrepreneur. If you enjoyed the show, please leave a review or comment on your preferred social media platform. Share it out with friends, family, coworkers, others in your network. And of course, you can write me directly at aaron@boldmedia.us. That's aaron@boldmedia.us.